Welcome. We're excited that you guys are here tonight. I get the privilege of preaching tonight, and I really do consider it a privilege of preaching. And so the title today, obviously, we're going through a couple of the chapters in the spiritual leadership book, and we're going to be talking about the cost and responsibility. And my title today is it worth it? And so when we break this down of our responsibility and the cost, you have to believe that it is worth it. If not, you will not live this out. And I want to share a story that, again, every time I preach, it just seems like either God slaps me across the face with something and say, Jordan, hey, dummy, listen to this, learn this. Or I get something incredible happen. And it was an incredible thing of I was running late to drop off my kids at school today, and we were getting out of the house. And as not a great thing, they didn't have breakfast. So sometimes on days they don't have breakfast, we just run through Starbucks. I put in a quick order, and I'm like, hey, here's breakfast, eat it. Right? Listen, that's not all the time, but that's once in a while, right? When dad takes them to school. So dad's taking them to school. This is what's happening. I get there, and there's this guy behind the counter, and I just asked him, I said, hey, one of the breakfast sandwiches is not in here. Is there any chance, like, it's somewhere, just to ask? I'm trying to be as kind as possible. I know they're busy. They're crazy in the mornings. And he just says, is your name Jordan, and do you go to Grace Chapel? And I said, now there's multiple ways this could go, right? This could be bad, or this could be really good. But I don't know what I'm walking into, so I'm a little fearful for this conversation. And I was like, yes, I am. And he said, I just want to tell you a story. And again, I don't know if that's good or bad at this point. So he decides to tell me the story that a couple weeks ago, that there was a customer that came in and was yelling at him, berating him for putting this much more milk than he wanted. I'm not joking. He said this much more milk than he wanted in his drink, right? Crazy coffee people. If you're one of them, we'll pray for you tonight. But this much more milk in the drink. And so this guy's irate. He's yelling at him. He's telling him how terrible he is with a whole bunch of other things. And he said this guy out of nowhere steps in and just says, hey, man, why are we doing this? Like, is it that big of a deal? He's going to remake your drink. He didn't do that on purpose. And he's loving and kind. And he said this guy had an Ironman shirt on. And so an Ironman shirt on. And he said this guy was loving and kind and compassionate and diffused this amazing situation. And he said, no joke, the guy ended up praying with the guy that was yelling at him, literally like a minute of yelling, and then this guy steps in and comforts him and talks to him and then starts to pray with him. And so this guy said, I haven't been to church in a while. And then he said, so I've been starting to come to Grace Chapel now, like in the last 2 weeks, because of this situation from one of you guys. He didn't know who it was. So again, and he was like, do you think that person's going to raise their hand? I said, I don't know if they're going to raise their hand or not. I don't know if they're in this room or not. They weren't in the morning one, or maybe they were and they just didn't want to raise their hand. But whoever it was, I just want to share an encouraging story of we're talking about spiritual leadership, and it matters, right? Of a guy stepping in, willing to handle a situation that was difficult, to a young man, he's 22 years old, sees Jesus through that situation. Hasn't been to church in a while and decides, I can come back. So men, it is worth it, right? I already answered the question tonight that we're going to ask, is it worth it? So let me pray and then we'll jump into it. Dear Lord, I just am so grateful and thankful, Lord. Lord, thankful for this story this morning, Lord, of just men leading well, Lord. I hope as we dive into today, Lord, this understanding, is it worth it to be leaders, Lord? Of understanding our responsibility mixed with the cost of what it takes to be leaders, Lord. That we would come out feeling refreshed, feeling closeness with you, Lord. I pray this in your name. Amen. So the first part, before we talk about the cost, because there is a heavy cost of leadership. And I wish I can tell you there is no cost. It's very easy. You can just go through life skipping in a flower field. That's just not how it happens, though. There is a cost. There is a weight to leadership. And so before we talk about the cost, we have to talk about our responsibility in it. That once you know your responsibility and you can go, I get why I'm supposed to do this. I am supposed to lead in this way. Then you can understand, is it actually worth the cost of it? And so responsibility is a good thing, except unless you're my 10-year-old kid. He hates responsibility. So he doesn't have incredible responsibility. He's 10 years old. But we give him things to do. And he gets more responsibility and more things he has to do than my 7-year-old, right? And my 7-year-old has more responsibility than my 3-year-old. It just works like that. So little things of like, hey, you need to pick up your room and do this. And he says, Dad, I really don't like to do that. It affects the time that I want, the me time. And I'm like, well, maybe if you would just do it already, then you would have your time. Like, I won't interrupt that, but you have a responsibility. This is what it means to be part of this family. And so if your last name is Corlew, and I said, it is, right? And he said, it is. Then I said, here are your responsibilities. And one of his responsibilities, and it's the same as my 7-year-old, is every morning is to put his lunch pail in his backpack. It's as simple as that. Lunch pail in backpack, not very difficult, right? That's a low-level responsibility. But I can't tell you how many times that the school over there has called me and be like, hey, Mr. Corlew, your son Landon has left his lunch, he said, at home, and he's asking for a lunch. And I said, he'll be okay. So I don't know. Listen, you can judge me and get mad at me, like say that's bad parenting, that's abuse, whatever. But he'll be okay, right? He ate breakfast, Starbucks, right? We got something. And then he'll eat dinner, don't worry. But it's that he has a responsibility that being part of being my kid, that there's a responsibility that me and my wife give to him and say, these are the things that you are tasked with. We need you to do these things. The same way that God has given us that if you are part of the family, that he has given you a responsibility to do. We see this in Matthew 28:16, right? The Great Commission says, now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. And when they saw him, they worshiped him, but some doubted. And Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go, therefore, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. You see, this responsibility is on all of us to go make disciples, to go and teach, to go and baptize, to do these things is to go. But so many of us just go, oh, do I really have to? It's easier to, I'll come to church and I'll just read my Bible, but I don't want to do things. Jesus is very clear that each of you in this room have a responsibility to go and do these things. I can't tell you how many times that from people, then again, that have just came to the faith that this responsibility they feel only falls on leadership and pastoral leadership, that this is the only thing. And so they're like, you're supposed to do everything. I said, no, we're supposed to do this together. This is a collective thing that we get to do together, and how beautiful that is. Because when I heard that Starbucks story, I said, I know there's many men in this room that are doing the same thing. And how beautiful that is that when we are doing this together, we are living out this mission of how much impact that we can impact Antelope Valley by just going and living the responsibility that has been given to each one of us. I meet with college students and I love it. And there's this college kid that I meet with, and one of the things that I do is usually within 6 months of me discipling them, I say at the 6-month mark that they must now go disciple somebody else. It's just something I do. I've done it now 13 years in ministry. About 6 months in, as long as they're spiritual, mature, and ready, it's time. Now, I'll still meet with them. We'll still hang out, and I'll still disciple them. But they need to actually go disciple someone else. So I have this student in my office, and I tell him, hey, it's time. It's the 6-month mark. You knew it was coming, right? We finished this book. We read this. We did this. This time is coming. And he just said, well, I guess me and your time is coming to an end then, because I don't want to do it. I don't want to go into that. He said, like, I would rather not be a part of that. And I said, oh, man, I'm sorry that doesn't feel good. I want you to do this, but I guess that's it. So I prayed for him. He left. And I always had a Thursday appointment with him. And so my calendar is when I put something in, and I leave it for a couple weeks. And then if they don't start showing up, then fine, I'll remove them. But I just left it there. Next week, he knocks on my door and says, okay, Jordan, I guess I got to do this, right? Like, he's like, I read the verses that you sent me. And I said, I sent to you those 3 weeks ago. He's like, I finally read them. I'm just being honest with you. And he's like, there is a responsibility that I have. And he says, it doesn't feel good to have a weight that I feel I have to do, but he says, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so he went out and picked the next student to disciple. This is a collective thing that we get to do together. That as we become spiritual mature men, that we are supposed to again replicate. That we've been discipled, now go and make disciples. This is each one of our responsibility to get a part of it. It's a beautiful thing that Jesus wants us to be a part of that thing. John Piper says this, he says, spiritual leadership is knowing where God wants people to be and taking the initiative to get them there by God's means and reliance on God's power. I love the Matthew 5, 13 through 16 verse, right? You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its taste, how shall its saltiness be restored? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and be trampled under people's feet. You are a light of the world. A city on a hill cannot be hidden. Nor do the people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand. It gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven. This understanding that this is what we are supposed to be, the light to the world. That there's a responsibility given to us, and we're supposed to live up to that responsibility. Even in times that is difficult, and we're going to get in just a second the cost that comes with that. But if you feel like, hey, I do have a responsibility, now when you walk with the cost, now at least you can say it was worth it because I know that I'm supposed to do this. J. Oswald Sanders, the book that we're reading, the author, he says this, to aspire to leadership in God's kingdom requires us to be willing to pay the price higher than others are willing to pay. The toll of true leadership is heavy, more effective. The leadership, the greater the cost. Why? We constantly see throughout in Scripture that God calling men and giving them a responsibility. The same way in this room today that God is calling men and giving you each responsibility to do that. And so what will you pay for spiritual leadership? What will it cost you? J. Oswald Sanders says, it takes a leader to embark on a dangerous venture. It takes a leader to build for the kingdom. That's why Jesus' words were so passionate. Count the cost, take up the cross. I think so many times we get into it, and then when something comes our way and something becomes difficult, and leadership is difficult, you know why leadership is difficult? Because people are difficult. Let's be real. I'm difficult, right? You can ask my wife. I'm not the easiest person at all times. You're not the easiest person at all times. People are a broken mess. And trying to lead and guide and encourage is a difficult thing. But at the same time, it is such a beautiful thing and so worth it. Luke 14:25 says, now great crowds accompanied him, and he turned and said to them, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not bear his own cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. This understanding of the way that we are supposed to love and the way we are supposed to serve is it looks like everything else is not important to us but God. That's the way our life should look. And there's a heavy cost that goes with it. The first cost is this, is where we pay with your stamina, right? That you will be weary. We see this in Galatians 6:9 through 10. And it says this, it says, and let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up. So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of our household of faith. This understanding of that you will grow weary. You will be tired. Let's be real, man. Some of you guys right now just worked a full day. You are exhausted. I don't know about some of you dads in the room, but you go home from a full day of work and your kids are rearing to go, and dad mode has to switch on right away because you are just like, that was a rough day at work. Do you know that that person said this and did this? Your kids don't know that. Your wife might not even know that at that point, but you are weary and you are tired. And that's just in the household of trying to lead now, trying to lead at your job now when people are rude to you and me. Like, you are going to be weary. The cost is your stamina at points. One of my favorite new companies is a company called Tired Dad. And the guy that created this, he said that his dad worked 2 jobs growing up. And the only time he was home was to sleep, basically. He ate with the family and went right to bed. He was never at any of the events or anything that he did, right? He was home for multiple hours, but it was just sleeping the whole entire time. And so he said when he had kids, he said he has the slogan of just show up. Men, you will be tired in leadership. You will be weary at things of doing good. And sometimes the best that you can do is just show up. Just be present, not just with your wife and kids, but at church, at your work. Sometimes, men, we want to run because we're tired. We want to sit there and do nothing. We don't want to be proactive with our families. We want to just scroll on our phones or put on a game or something. And really, what we are asking is just to be present, to show up. Even in the midst of our tiredness and our weariness of doing good, is to show up. What is the next cost? The next cost is with your status. Herbert Swoop says this: I cannot give you the formula for success, but I can give you the formula for failure, which is try to please everyone. Try to please everyone. James 3:1 says, not many of you should become teachers, my fellow believers, because you know that we who teach will be judged more strictly. It's hard to be, it stinks to be rejected. Let's just be real, men, right? It doesn't feel good to be rejected. Again, we could raise our hands, but everybody in this room has been rejected or judged at a certain part of life. That's just life. That's what happens, right? That, again, you do something, you put everything on the line, and people look at you and go, what were you doing? Man, you're crazy. Like, that just seems insane. Why would you do that? The judgments start to fill up. Or you put everything on the line and you're rejected. There was a point in my life that I did junior high ministry. That's a point I never want to go back to. Listen, that's I pray for junior hires the most. Listen, there's a lot of things. I've done high school, I've done other things, but junior high ministry is just a unique ministry. And again, if God calls me back, then so be it. But God can do whatever he wants, but junior high ministry is a rough ministry. But so I was helping with junior high ministry, and because our junior high youth pastor at the time, he left to take another job somewhere else. So then I was running high school and that. So I was filling in, and there was this kid who I love to death, and he was like, hey, I'm going to ask out a girl. And I always told junior hires that's the stupidest decision you can make, right? Like, let's be real. What does that look like in a junior high dating relationship? Mom and dad take you, right? Or to the place. Also, you don't really hang out at school. Junior hires don't, if they're dating, they don't hang out at school. No joke. I've been to a lot of junior high campuses, and they're like, that's my girlfriend. I'm like, I've been here with you the whole day. You haven't even talked to her. He's like, yeah, we're dating, though. And I'm like, that doesn't count. But all that to say is he was like, I'm going to ask out this girl. And I kept saying, no, don't do it. I didn't know anything else. I was like, don't do it. So he planned for 3 weeks. He spent $300. He had these balloons and extravagant flowers, all this thing. He was really going out. He's an 8th grader. And I was like, oh, man. I called him that night, and I said, hey, man. And I knew his parents really well. And so I told his parents, I said, hey, let me talk to him on the phone real quick. I said, hey, you still want to go through with this? We can get some refunds for some of the stuff you did. I'll take you back. We'll be okay. Right? We'll be okay. You don't need to do this. And he's like, no, I got to do this now. So he goes, and big spectacle. And, the girl said no in front of 150 people. So next thing I know, I don't know if she tells him no. Next thing I know is the receptionist was like, hey, Jordan, you have this kid here to see you. And I was like, what is he doing here? We don't, youth group doesn't start for another 4 hours. What is he doing here? And he's in tears. He's like, Jordan, she said no to me. I said, man, didn't I tell you? Anyways, I didn't say that. But again, he did everything that he could. He thought he was doing well, and he was rejected. But in the same way, this is going to happen, men, when we live our lives. We see this throughout Scripture, right, in the Bible, that multiple people rejected at key points. We see Joseph was rejected by his brothers. We see Moses was rejected by Israel. We see David by Saul's house, and then later by his own son Absalom. We see Paul was rejected by the very churches in Asia that he had established, and Jesus came to his own and was rejected by them. Men, this is the cost of leading, is you will be judged and rejected. It's not an easy point to swallow. The first one, you're like, okay, I get it. We're tired, right? Like, we're all tired. That's okay. Weary. I can do that. But to tell you that you're going to be judged and rejected, that this is one of the costs, is a hard thing for us to swallow. I love in the book that it says, Archbishop Benson says this. He says, it says that the blame, right, the things that we bear, right, bear the blame, do not share it or transfer it. That we're supposed to bear that blame and that judgment on us. We're not supposed to give it to someone else, so that when we are judged and that we are rejected, we're not supposed to, in return, give that to other people to hold the weight. Charles E. Cowan says this, and I love this quote. Often a crowd does not recognize a leader until he has gone. And then they build a monument to him with the stones they threw at him in life. Again, that's so true, right? Again, good leaders, though, will be rejected, will be judged, will be told terrible things, but they will still persevere. Why? They know their responsibility. They know the responsibility that God has given them, and so they will walk in that, men, in the same way that you can do that in your life. Right? An effective leader does not let the problem stop the promise in his life. That they just keep going after it. Next point is, what will you give up is your service. Right? You will pay it with your service. Like, life is not about you. And I think we all know that already, right? But it's good to be told, because I know me, especially me, I wake up in the morning and life wants to start about me. It doesn't want to start about God or my family or anything like that. My brain is wired to be selfish, and I have to constantly be in Scripture. I told this story in church, but this lady came up to me this weekend, and she was like, Jordan, you share the story in church that how every morning that the first thing that you go to is the Bible verse of the day, right, in the Bible app, and you just try to start with that. So your day is starting intaking, not with self, but with God. And she's like, I've done it for now since you spoke, so it's been a couple months. She's like, Jordan, it changed everything. My life is not, when I start the morning, about me, but it's about God. Right? We are prone to be about self. And so service is not about us. It's about what we can do for other people. When students come to you and say, hey, I want to start this ministry, you say yes as fast as possible, right? You're just like, yes, you want to do something, let's get you behind it. So there was this, when I was leading high school, there was this girl that came up to me. She's like, hey, we serve at the former church I was at, we serve about 500 people every Monday night a meal. And so she's like, what I would like to do is I would like to do manicures and pedicures for those people. And I was like, great, but I'm not the guy, because I don't know how to do that, right? It ain't like, but I'll support you and we'll get. And so she created this whole thing. I remember pitching it to the youth group. I said, hey, we need you to be a part of it. This is such a great, incredible program that we're going to start. And I was met with the response of, I don't want to touch people's hands and feet, Jordan. Come on. These are homeless people. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a part of that. That doesn't sound like something I want to do. And I agree with them. That doesn't sound like something nobody wants to do, but that's something that we should do. I remember the first night of doing it. It was 4 of us, and so again, a couple guys came in too. So we were washing feet, we were cleaning hands, I was doing everything that I could, restocking things. And there was this lady that came in, and she said she's been homeless for 5 years, and she was in tears. She couldn't talk the whole entire time, that somebody was willing to do this. That they lowered themselves in such a way of a posture of a heart of service. I told that story at youth the next week. We ended up having 75 people show up the next week to serve. God is amazing when life is not about you and we can be about other people. I love Thomas Rainer says this, confident and courageous leaders have no problems pointing out their own weaknesses and ignorances. Again, our life is not about us. Matthew 20:26-28, it shall not be so among you, but whoever would be great among you must be your servant, and whoever would be first among you must be your slave. Even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. If Jesus did this, this is our call, to surrender ourselves and to be about other people. But that is difficult. That is a cost that you have to continue to live, is that, again, people are going to irritate you and make you mad, and your goal is to keep on serving. Keep on loving them. Even through the difficulties of everything, that is really hard. And I know many men have shaken their head because you've been there. It's hard to serve people that are rough and difficult. Like that guy in Starbucks to sit and that guy yelling, it was probably hard on him not to just yell back at him, what are you doing? But instead come around him and put his arm around him and says that I love you. Hey, let's calm down. This is it. Not an easy solution, but a necessary one. Philippians 2:4 says this, not looking to your own interests, but each other to the interest of others. Men, so it costs us our service. Next and lastly is that we pay with our surrender. We pay with our surrender. You see, the first one is that life is not about you. The next one is that your life is not even your own, that you were bought at a price, that is Christ. Surrender, though, when I say that, that doesn't sound like a thing, right? That sounds like shoot, that's a defeat, that's a loss, like that's an end. Like, Jordan, how do you make this a good thing? Has there been times in your life that you wish you would have surrendered to an argument with your wife or a friend? Right? There's a time that you were arguing. There's time that you were saying stuff, and then you wanted to win that argument so bad. You needed to be right so much. And you're like, after it got over, you're like, oh man, why didn't I just stop? What was the win? I lost. I might have won that battle, but I lost the war. Now I gotta pack it up. I'm sleeping on the couch tonight. It's not good for my back, right? But that understanding is that surrendering has to be what we do. That again, service is your life's not about yourself. Surrendering is that Jesus bought you and you are his. Romans 12:1 says this, that I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as living sacrifices, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. This is what we're supposed to do, to give everything, because it's not our own. Jesus already bought us. But it takes us surrendering everything. It takes us not being in control and trying to steer the areas of our life that we want to steer so much. It's every day saying, I'm going to go get in the passenger seat where I belong. I'm going to sit there, I'm going to be active, but I'm going to get in the passenger seat where I belong. So that's the cost. Heavy cost of leading at times. But there is a payback. And here's the payback. As Nelson Mandela said, he said this, as we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. You see, the only way that this is actually possible is to help people through that, is to go through our own fear. The only way that we can do that is Jesus liberating our own fear in our lives. Right? We see this in Isaiah 41:10. He says, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. Fear not, men. God is with you. You see, the beauty of all this life is that there is a cost. But even through that cost, you have a God that loves you so much and is so near each and every one of you that even when you feel you are tired, even when you feel you are judged, even when you feel like you have just keep serving and get nothing out of it, and you just keep going back, and even when you just say, I got to surrender, there's a God that fills you up constantly. And the way that happens is your proximity to him. I can tell so many times when men are drifting from God is when I start to see that the cost is not worth it anymore. And I say, man, their proximity is starting to drift. Their closeness with God is far. James 4:10 says this, humble yourself before the Lord, and he will exalt you. We don't do the own exalting in our life, that Jesus ultimately exalts you. We humble ourselves, we draw near to him, and he lifts us up. I want to end with a story and a final quote. One of a good friend from high school. Again, he went to Desert Christian High School with me, but and was multiple grades younger. And I didn't really get a chance to know him until I graduated. But he wasn't a Christian, didn't believe in God. And it was kind of sad, and got through his whole entire life, and then moved and went away to college in Fullerton. And then he ended up at a laundromat, and there's this company or organization called Laundry Love. And so basically once a month they do free laundry for people. And so he met a guy named Jesse. And this guy, Jesse, just was talking his ear off about life and everything, because my friend, he didn't come there to get free laundry. He just came there to do his laundry on a happen night that was Laundry Love, and they were trying to love the city. And the guy Jesse was just talking about life and everything like that. And he was like, hey, man, you seem like a super cool guy. Like, we should hang out. My friend's like, hey, yeah, I'll help you with Laundry Love next month. He's like, no, let's hang out like a couple days this week. Like, I'll get to know you. And my friend's not a person that says no to people. So he's just like, just sure, I guess, even though he didn't want to do it. So Jesse hung out with him 4 days a week. Just kept hanging out with him. Shared the gospel, shared scripture with him, invited him to church, did everything that he can. Friend calls me up in 2 months of hanging out with Jesse, and he says, Jordan, I don't know, I do some things that I normally didn't do. The way that I'm kind and compassionate and loving with people is totally changed. The way that I'm able to think about things is totally different. And then he said this thing. He said, obviously, Jesus is impacting my life. He's working on my heart. But he says, the closer I am with Jesse, who is very close with God, the closer I feel with God. Men, you have this chance to be that example in a lot of people's lives of how loving and kind and compassionate, but it's dependent on your proximity to God. The closer you are with him, the more he rubs off on you. Last thing I end with this is leadership is painful, but Jesus is worthy. Men, when we count the cost of leadership, it starts with us understanding and walking into, do we know that our role in this, that Jesus has assigned us and given you something to partake in, to go and make disciples. And understanding that when you feel weary, when you feel judged, when you feel like, I don't know if I can give any more, Jordan. I don't know if I can serve. I don't know if I have time. I don't know if this. Men, I encourage you to press into him and watch him fill you up where you didn't think anything could be. Let me pray. Dear Lord, I just am so grateful and thankful, Lord. I'm thankful that for wanting us to be a part of this, Lord, giving us a role in this matter, Lord. Some of us right now are feeling the cost of leading, not only in our homes, but at work, maybe in church, maybe in different areas of our life, that we're feeling the cost of this, Lord. I pray for those men in this room right now, Lord, that they would press into you. They would find you, Lord, and then, Lord, within that, Lord, they would be filled, Lord. Pray for our table discussion tonight, Lord, that you would lead us and guide us. In Jesus' name, amen.